Hello and welcome, and to a lot of you, welcome back to this second episode out of three in the PIM Crash Course series hosted by Vaimo and Aquino. We are thrilled that so many of you found this interesting, and actually it aligns well with what we see on the market. A lot of companies begin to realize that PIM is a crucial building block in the digitalization journey. Today we're going to address the topic streamlining supplier data made easy. And with me, I have two experts in this area. Hi, Tanguy.
Hey Tommy, how are you?
Yeah, all good. And Sergey, are you ready?
You guys, of course.
Very good. Thanks. I know that you're both eager to get going, and I'll get back to you shortly. But first, a short recap from last episode where we had PJ and James underlining the need of building a rich product model in the PIM to support the full e-commerce customer journey. It's no longer enough to have only price and description to be able to build the trust needed for clients to make the online purchase. Especially now, as James told us, when we see the millennial generation really driving online sales. These guys don't know a world without internet, and they are very picky. If they don't like what they see, they will move on. If you missed that episode and interesting to watch it anyway, Julia will put up a direct link in the chat here so you can re-watch it, kind of thing. And speaking about statistics and the PIMometer, in the last episode, we told you about another way to get a first understanding if a PIM would fit into your organization. By answering the PIMometer survey questions, we would be able to get a good understanding and be able to give you useful recommendations on how to move forward. So if you're a decision maker and wants to know more around PIM to understand how such a tool can be used to centralize workflows, increase team efficiency, or if you're an influencer that just want to highlight the benefits with the PIM to management, the PIMometer would be a great way to begin. By answering the survey, we will tailor a report for your company that you can use internally to discuss actions and next steps. We even use it here at Vaimo to qualify new clients, since it enables us to be very efficient and also get a good understanding to be able to ask you guys the right questions. And don't be afraid, this is not a sales tool, and not all surveys will end up in a you have to have PIM now. It was actually originally built as an internal evaluation tool for us to understand when a PIM is either too early to implement or when we truly believe that you will get return on your investment. So again, if you're curious about your company's PIM score, you'll find it on pimometer.com. All right. Now for the housekeeping rules for this session. It's pretty similar to the first episode, and that means that we are going to run with the experts for 30 minutes, and then at the end we're going to have a 15 minutes possibility for question and answers. And again, we would like to welcome a lot of questions, so take your chance and fire away. To ask a question, please just enter it in the chat, and you can do this throughout the session. We will answer as many questions we have time for. If there will be questions that we don't have time for during the session, we will get back directly to you by mail. And exactly as last time, you don't have to make any recordings or screen captures. Everything will be emailed to you by tomorrow, including the slides. And also want to remind you that we do have a PIMometer summary report with comments from both the Aquino side and the Vaimo side, and you'll find it if you look at your GoToWebinar control panel where it says handouts. If you click there, you'll have a link to be able to download this report. Okay, now then, So the introduction of today's speakers, if you will, yeah, thanks. From the Akinio side, then, Mr. Tanguy Meriadic, Sales Manager for Northern Europe and APAC. I have known Tanguy since the early days and always valued his razor-sharp insights and professionalism, as well as sharing a pint every now and then. Welcome, Tanguy.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. Just skip my last name because you're pretty bad at pronouncing it.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right,
Tommy.
moving on to Mr. Sergey Morin, head of PIM here at Vimo, which means that Sergey is managing the PIM delivery team. Sergey comes from a background of over more than 20 years of managing IT projects, and we here at Vimo relies on Sergey's team to deliver long-time value for all Vimo clients who strive to drive success in digital commerce. All right.
Hey guys, nice to be here with you.
Yeah.
So with that, over to you guys. Please take us through today's session.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Tommy, and nice to meet you, everyone. Yeah, we're really excited with Sergey to be in this call today because we actually handled a few cases together, and maybe as an introduction, it's just worth mentioning that this webinar is of course going to be primarily for distributors or retailers, so typically organizations who have in front of them suppliers providing them with product data at some point. Now, if you are a manufacturer or a brand, don't leave the webinar, of course, as we see a lot of those organizations also distributing some products from other parties. And being on the other side of the fence, you want to know also as a supplier what it is to have proper tools and practices in place to work efficiently with your counterparts. There are long-term, mid-term, and short-term benefits of well managing this side of the process. On the long term, of course, being an e-commerce manager, a marketing manager inside a retailer or a distributor, you are of course being asked to offer a wider range of products, a wider range of categories, and therefore be in a position to welcome more and more suppliers down the line. And this is typically what we want to come up with in terms of answer. On the midterm, you need to swiftly be able to replace and add new suppliers in your supply mix. That is often a situation you are facing. And more in short term and on the reaction side of things, there are sometimes suppliers that are not able to provide products, especially in those times of COVID where suppliers aren't always able to manufacture. You are confronted to new situations where you need to replace suppliers, and that's typically the aim of this call to find ideas around that. So really our intention today for this webinar is to understand what it takes to be an agile organization that is capable of working well, efficiently, and change this relationship with suppliers. This is what it's all about. So first of all, let's take a look at this diagram. We just thought of representing what it takes for you, retailer, distributors, to welcome a new supplier into your organization today. There are two main steps that we represented here. The onboarding and the configuration of the relationship on one side, and that's what happens on whenever you recruit new supplier. You need to register them, build due diligences, make sure you define the right contracts and pricing together, sometimes in a tiered pricing approach, and ultimately register them in your ERP. And then the second big step is when it comes to actually communicating on a regular basis product information together with that supplier. Of course, ultimately, this supplier wants to get products to you, and that's what we are focusing on today to help you accelerate the strategic side of the process. We will focus especially on that because we think that this is something we face, and a lot of retailers forget that this strategic aspect of getting supply data easily is absolutely key. and not that easy actually today. So what does it take? The question you need to ask yourself in order to be able to judge yourself objectively as being mature in your supply onboarding processes is typically those questions. And I think, to Tommy's point in his PIM-o-meter, those are typically the questions you are being asked in order to grade your maturity and be able to figure out if this is a source worth investing in. So first of all, how product data is being sent to you? How do your suppliers send it? Is it Excel? Is it a integrated way? Is it phone calls, PDF sheets? We often hear strange things around that, and I'm sure some of you will recognize that. How long typically does the process take between the time your supplier pushes new IDs, new seasons of products, and until the time you're actually able to sell it online? How much of this takes you? Very often we hear 2-3 months duration, which can sound a lot, but it's a very typical duration we hear. What is the mechanism you use to communicate with suppliers? Emails, phones, text, or supplier portals sometimes. How do you validate the data once you know which supplier you want to work with and ensure that it's complete, that your suppliers are respecting your product experience, referring to what James and PJ said last week. If you want to have a good product experience, you also have to prepare your suppliers to be in this mindset. And ultimately, how do you add those new items from your suppliers? Simple questions, but very interesting to measure your maturity against those. And very often, if we want to represent a typical organization we face, this is Julia. She is category manager for retailer A, and she's in front of 6 suppliers, X suppliers, that all of them have different ways of working. They start texting, they send an email, they call her, they send a spreadsheet in a format. So we really understand here that this organization isn't scalable, first of all. It relies too much on individuals. It is too much a personal relationship between Julia and her supplier. But what happens tomorrow if she leaves? What happens if you need to scale up the team? It is a very difficult change management process here in case you need to replace people. So we see that this organization here relies too much on individuals and is clearly a bottleneck in your growth. And that's what we want ultimately for you, be in a position to grow together with your suppliers to have this success together. So this, of course, has to change. What we frequently hear is that the processes as a consequence of the previous diagram is very slow, is very manual. The suppliers are using different standards. Obviously, they aren't synchronizing with each other to define what format they would agree with. It's very fragmented, of course. And even if you have a supplier portal where, remember this diagram I started my speech with, where you are registering your suppliers, you are defining your pricing policy, still there is something often missing to be able to easily collaborate and exchange product information between suppliers and retailers. And obviously, as I said before, this process isn't scalable, either to invite new suppliers or whenever you need people to change inside your organization. So now that we've understood the current challenge that a lot of retailers face, how do we change that, basically? How do we easily onboard suppliers? The first thing we want to focus on again is the second part of this process here. Back to this diagram, we have to understand that the supplier is truly a key component of your success. And if you consider that the process only starts at the beginning of your ERP system, you are forgetting the hidden side of the iceberg, which the suppliers are probably representing if you are a retailer. And truly, the success will only come if you are able to make retailers and suppliers speak the same language. Today, we face customers that you have the feeling that suppliers and retailers are actually not speaking the same language. One is sending a file that the other doesn't understand, and the other one sends a predefined template that the supplier doesn't want to take. And so we want to solve it easily, basically. So we built not only a tool, but together with our system integrators, Vimo being one of them, a tool and a practice dedicated to the supplier onboarding. And we build it in a scalable and secure way. It is important to insist on those two words because you need scalability in such an organization, because obviously you cannot control how your suppliers are going to behave, how many products they will send to you and when. If you are dealing with in the fashion industry, you will have a lot of peak season and peak activity on your onboarder, so you have to have a scalable system and processes behind to cope with such peak activities. And you also need security, because yes, you truly need to consider your supplier as a part of your success, as part of your process, but no, it shouldn't be part of your IT and should be secure. You do not give any sort of access to suppliers, and you have to restrict what they can send to you, what they can sell, and how much of trust you give to the supplier. Not too much, not too few. So the concepts are pretty simple, actually. Our product information platform is natively going to be compliant with a data model that you are going to expose to your suppliers. And that's the best way we thought we could actually make people finally understand each other. That's what we often hear when we interview the suppliers who use this platform. They all of a sudden say, oh, finally I get what my retailer is expecting from me. Instead of being sent templates that I needed to fulfill, I didn't even know what attributes I was meant to fill in. Now I have a simple interface, and me as a retailer, I am able to easily share and expect more and more from my suppliers as part of this process. So it is as easy as this. The supplier A, let's name it this way, connects himself to this Akinio onboarder. He is displayed the product that he is currently selling or trying to sell through this retailer, and he knows exactly where he is asked to enrich what type of information, basically. And of course, the supplier will not be asked to enrich everything. You will not be as demanding as your own content team if you are on the retailer side. And once he has done his side of the job, his part of the process, automatically the products appear in the product experience suite, so that the marketing team from the retailer, the content team can further enrich and add product information. We just wanted to easily show you a few screenshots. This is not intended to be demo or solution selling here, but it's just to understand how easy we thought the solution here. Here you are looking at the screen that the retailer has in front of him to register his suppliers, manage them, add or remove suppliers easily, define what product data is required for those suppliers, and review ultimately the product changes or the new products that the supplier is pushing. Our solution accepts both. You can either work in update mode with your suppliers or upon creation mode. So if you want to trust fully your supplier, you may give him access or give him the possibility to create and suggest products to you directly. On the supplier side, the supplier easily sees from a UI what is possible, what is necessary to enrich, first of all, what is possible in terms of attributes types to be filled in, and again, create or suggest changes from the UI directly. So finally here, we are making people who did not speak the same language in the past speak the same language now and understand each other's expectations through these connected apps. The benefits are obvious, but they are worth mentioning. they have basically two type of benefits. The reduction of errors. Of course, you are restricting, you are making sure that the inputs from suppliers are respecting your structure. You avoid a lot of back and forth communication. Everything is happening in the application. No more emails lost, communications, hours spent over the phone, and of course a lot of time reduced to enrich the data. This will probably affect your own cost if you are a retailer. And it will also affect the time it takes you to get a product online. An example we often quote is Myer, the department store in Australia. It's the #1 department store over there, and they've used a Kino onboarding process and I believe reduced the onboarding duration from 3 months down to 2 to 3 days. So they have 1 million products catalog. So if you do the math, it is quite huge, the benefit of increasing this time to market. On the positive side, of course, the data quality and accuracy will have a mechanical impact on sales. Again, referring to what James and PJ said last week, here we are dealing with product experience fundamentally, and it's not just about the efficiency of processes. So yeah, that's it for my part. I think, Sergey, it's now to you, yeah?
Yeah, I'll be happy to continue from the next slide. And here I suppose to say about how successfully implement this approach. And maybe when you hear such suggestions from the company like Waymo, you maybe will expect that I will say about some kind of technical challenges inside of the projects. But honestly, for Akino and for Onboarder, I expected that such kind of project will go quite smoothly because Akino is quite a mature product, and of course this is a technical project and you will need to make some integrations and to spend some time on it, but I'm not expecting some issues here. But when it often happens in such projects like a digital transformation and changes of processes, and especially with Onboarder, you are changing the process not only in your organization, but in organization of your supplier, I would expect to have some human interaction issues and maybe some process issues. So I would like to prefer to be focused on those topics today. Mm-hmm. And I would like to start him from the 3 questions, which I think is good to ask even before you are taking decision about Onboarder implementations. Just to take the right decision, this is one of the key factors to get the success, right? And maybe all of these questions are a little bit obvious, but from my experience, I would say that a lot of companies, they are just skipping this step, and then they can expect some issues on the late project stages. And the first question is about the benefits. So, for example, we had a client which came to us with 10 Shopify stores, and this client asked us to build kind of end-to-end workflow from suppliers to the Kino to the stores. And when you see such client, you think that, yeah, that's reasonable to work on such project, right? But if to dig a little bit and to ask more questions, you will find that they had just around between 5 and 10 products on each store, and the frequency of updates of these products was something like 1 time per year. So I would say that for such client, it's not so rational to invest in Onboarder. Maybe it's better to invest in the business growth here, right? The same comes to the suppliers. So before start with Onboarder implementation, you should make sure that you have suppliers which see you as a strategic partner. You have to make sure that they see the benefits of changing the process inside of their organization, helping you to grow your business. And of course, it's good to check your product database and the sales. So maybe the main sales streams is coming from your products and not suppliers' products. But so of course, in this case, maybe you can focus on your main business. But if answer is yes here, we can switch to the next question. Tanguy? Yeah, thank you. And this is about the supplier. So very often you can find suppliers are not so mature to start to work with Onboarder and to onboard the data. Maybe this is, I don't know, 2 persons in garage who are working with 10 or 20 channels, and for them it will be tough to change their processes because the processes are basically quite messy, right? For example, I had a client in Asia. They were selling spare parts, and they had a lot of small workshops and small suppliers. And the idea was, of course, to build some kind of supplier portal and to onboard everybody to this portal. But in the reality, like it happens sometimes, they built an awesome portal, but nobody used it. And they still used only manual onboarding of data, and it was quite tough. So before start with your onboarder, it's good to go to suppliers and to make sure that they're ready to dedicate employees to work with you, to make sure that they know how to adjust their processes and to make sure that they have a product database. And normally on this stage, you will find that some of suppliers are mature enough to work with you and some of them are not mature enough. And in this case, it's just good to back to the slide one and to to evaluate the share of the business of these suppliers and to try to calculate the ROI of your onboarder implementation. And the third question is about your maturity. When you're expecting the maturity from your suppliers, you have to mature as well. And here you should try to make sure that they have PIM. And because we had a client who came to us and asked to build this awesome workflow around the onboarding and product enrichments. But when we discovered even on pre-sale stage, this particular case, we found that they even don't have an alignment in between all systems. They have a different IDs for products. And for such kind of cases, maybe it's better to start from your product model, your product onboarding, and all policies around that. So if you have all positive answers here, seems that you can say that yes, onboarder is something we would like to implement. And but still, before start with implementation and before go with RFP to the company like Waymo, it's good to make some prep work. And maybe you can switch the slides. And to the next one. Yep, thank you. And the first, what I would suggest to do here is to start from the people engagement and from finding somebody inside of supplier organization in your organization to support you. I would like to share here the Goldratt change metric. This is kind of famous scientist and the person who introduced to the market theory of constraints. So maybe if some of you are from manufacturing business, you should hear this name. And what is important here, when you are selling some idea like onboarder, you are very focused on the benefits you are delivering with this solution. But the person who is listening you from supplier side or from other departments in your organization, they always have a choice to change and not to change, right? So to make onboarder or not to implement onboarder inside of your organization. So it's good to build such metrics to see the full scale of the picture, and then only after that to go to your specific suppliers and colleagues to sell this idea. If this idea is sold, it's good to switch to the tip 2 and to start from building the MVP scope. This is already kind of a market standard, and I think that for onboard implementation is enough to start with one strategic supplier and build the end-to-end workflow. Then when it will be done with excellence, you will have all numbers, you will have all cases to show to other suppliers and to engage them. And also you will know how it's better to implement it. You already will have some training materials and the flow of onboard implementation from the supplier side. So that's a market standard, and this is absolutely applicable here. And the last tip from me today, but I think as for me personally, this is one of the most important tips here, because I was involved in a lot of IT projects, and I can say that when stakeholders are not aligned, I mean, from supplier side, from software integrator, from your company side, you can expect some issues in the project. So when you're working with onboarder, don't expect that this tool will solve all issues and all questions in the world. I don't think that it will be a good idea to expect from onboarder to deal with finance, with reconciliation with your suppliers, with logistic order management and stuff like that. Also, it's good not to expect from your suppliers that they will act as your employee. This is a different companies, different cultures, KPIs, processes. So if you would like to engage them, you should expect that you will spend some time even in their offices. So when you're building your budget for this project, it's quite good even to to consider these expenses and to budget them, because at least the first year you will spend some time with train, with engage of employees from your suppliers, and then of course you will get these investments refunded with some benefits. And the last here, of course, this is equality. If you would like to build such an amazing products like PJ explained in the previous episodes, the quality first. And if you need to wait a few weeks and to make it excellent, it's better to reconsider deadline changes, but to make it excellent, and then it will be quite fast to roll out it to other suppliers. That's all from my side today.
Thanks, Sergey.
Yeah, thanks to both of you. And with this, we will conclude the second episode. And I guess, from my own experience, what you've talked about today, it is not all companies that understand the full value of a PIM, especially not in the onboarding phase. I mean, some companies I've met has overcome this problem just by adding more people to handle all the variations of supplier information coming in. And that truly is a bottleneck and definitely hard to scale. And I guess that's why, Tongi, that's one of the factors that you've seen success with this application on top of the Akinio database.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. It's true that of course we get asked to pitch for PIM RFPs as simple as that, and very often when we try to take a step back and see a larger view of the full process, the very few retailers understand that the success of the journey of a product, the success of your business, really starts when the supply starts working. And it's really important to be in a position to actually speak to one another, understand each other's expectations, and yeah, it's very interesting to see how much they haven't thought that suppliers could be part of the success and the process, and think that PIM should only be this tool for great product experience, but the success starts in the hands of the supplier, I think.
Yeah. And Sergey, what you talked about is also really interesting. And I guess what you mean is kind of some kind of MVP approach to handle one or two or the major suppliers first and outline how to go about it to the rest of the guys, basically.
Yeah, of course. I think that it's very important to start from something small, because it will help you to understand clearly what you are going to reach, and the scale will be enough to be focused on some specific topics in order to to create it perfectly before sell it to other audiences.
Yeah. All right. I think we're running out of time, but it's super interesting, guys, and I think we do have a bunch of questions. But to conclude and to summarize, we've got a lot of information around how to think about onboarding and standardization from suppliers. And we, as I said before, we know from the survey answers that this is a big pain point for many of you. And I would suggest if this applies to you and to your organization, that you reach out to Tongi and his team to be given a full demo of the onboarder in a live environment, so that you can see how this would apply to you.
Yeah, maybe not next week because we're in closing times, but happy to do it at the beginning of October.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, so when we come back for the big finale of this series, we will address the very heart of the PIM and talk about how you can set up enrichment workflows, address user roles to make sure that all of your data is consistent regardless of the touch point. We will be sharing some of our best practices and experience, so that you should get a good understanding of the possibilities, but also around the limitation, and that is equally important. You have oh, wait a minute, roll back, Tongi.
Sorry.
Back to the thank you. For you who has been with us throughout the course, and by all means everybody else, make sure that you sign up for the last episode. Julia have put up in the chat right now a direct link that would take you to the sign up page. This episode is on the 1st of October. And I guess, Julia, that's okay. You put it up there so people can get directly into the sign up page. And if you turn slides now, Tongi, then I just want to remind you guys again about this Pymometer report. It's built out of more than 100 answers and then the statistics around that. And it has comments from both the Kineo side and Vimo side on these statistics. And I think it might be useful if you're thinking about implementing a PIM. So then you can read it through and understand what applies to your business. And with that, over to the questions. So we have a bunch of questions, and let me take them from the top here.
If it's okay, I'll stop sharing my screen. I can see you guys.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I just read them out, and so it's more like a comment. So many suppliers. The problem with many suppliers are that their systems are really old and out of date, and they still just want to push to FTP and CSV files only. How can that apply to the onboarder? Because that is truly the case.
Yeah, that's a valid point. You will face suppliers who have a different level of maturity on the technical side of things. The tool is designed in general to welcome CSV type of uploads. FTP could work as well. That's something Vimo would help you with, to define what is best owing to which supplier technology-wise. Our advice is to try to avoid tailor-made things with suppliers, or maybe just do tailor-made for the biggest and the most strategic of your suppliers. It is actually interesting to see that in this industry the 2080 rule applies quite easily. Most likely 20% of your suppliers are providing you with 80% of your products and business. Those are the ones on which you might want to take a bit of time to assess if they're capable of working with the onboarder, where they won't have anything to install and you don't need anything from them apart from their agreement. Which are the ones who will reject it, and that's fine. And for those ones, the biggest ones, you will make tailor-made endpoints. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I would agree here that, of course, that most of suppliers, they are quite conservative guys. So that's why basically I pointed that it's good to start with MVP and to choose one supplier. It will be maybe hard to find the one, but at least it's better than find the hundreds, right? But and what is important on MVP stage is it's really manually build the flow and to prove that supplier and your company can get some really good benefits. You can make an A/B test on the product pages, and you can count the time to market for the product. So you will have, after MVP, you'll have numbers to illustrate to other suppliers. And if they're interested in the business growth, and they should be, so then you will be able to show them that that's not only about like data, that's about the business and about the sales. And then for you, it will be simpler to convince them to little bit to adjust their old style systems to work with onboarder.
Yeah. The next question is a really interesting one, I think, because this is really also the case. It says most suppliers use data services like CDNet, Utilize, iSCAT, etc. How would I convince a supplier to onboard in a Kineo when they have an incentive just to sell the product data?
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, again, some of the retailers we face consider that iSCAT or CNET are good enough for them. So in such case, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You probably don't need an onboarder if your industry has already managed to define such standards. What we often hear is that the data that comes from such data brokers is probably not the best or is the same across all retailers. So it's not the most sales-friendly data that you would receive. So yeah, again, depends if your industry is capable. The more you are going to be able to industrialize the onboarding of the data, the better. If you are working with the likes of CNET and IceCat, that's totally fine. And it's complementary actually. So you may still want suppliers to add information on top of the IceCat data. Again, if you have this level of intimacy with your suppliers, they might just say, no, for me, it's just going to be IceCat, and that's fine. But not every industry has this level of maturity. Yeah.
No, I guess you're absolutely right, and you need. We know from the last episode that you need most likely to add information, your own information on top of that. And let's see. Here's a performance question. How fast can Akinio import 40,000 SKUs with 100 fields? What are the best VMware settings for Azure, Amazon, and Google Cloud? Maybe that is a little bit specific and we can get back to that, or do you have the answer here now, Tongi?
No, I don't have the answer. I would have to run the data set, especially to figure this out. Now, what is sure is that, as I explained and insisted, I think we build a platform that is secure and scalable because we truly understand and believe that scalability is of essence. You don't want the supplier to be waiting for his 40,000 products to come in. So we have built a tool that is a scalable one because I think what is behind this question is we need scalability, and we agree on that. And we've worked a lot, both on the PIM side and on the onboarder side, to be capable of handling high number of products. Of course, things have to be scheduled, and I don't think you will get 40,000 products every day from the same supplier. Otherwise, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, basically, I would add here that, of course, it's quite depends on configuration and how you're importing this data. Will it come from through SFTP, or you will use Akinio API? Will you push data? So it's quite specific question, and better to maybe to have it just a separate call and to discuss it, so we will be able to emulate it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I think that this might be a little mix of the questions here, but they're coming from the same asker, basically. So why ask for onboarding when the PIM can just receive the product UPC code, MPN, brand, title, and match it up with existing databases? And maybe that ties in also to Franklin, which we didn't talk about. But anyway, again, it's a question why to use the onboarder. And I guess that's the key of the question. That's the part of the question.
Yeah, so first of all, I think the onboarder is not a necessity and is not mandatory if you are a retailer, especially not mandatory for every of your suppliers. You might have a few who will be okay to comply with an easy Excel template. For those, you would be able to ingest that data directly into the PIM. Others would be willing to work in an onboarder in a way more integrated way. Why would you make one work in one way or the other? The more you can work through an application like the onboarder, the better you are going to be able to collaborate. And by collaboration, I mean control what the supplier is providing you with, accept, reject very granularly, products by products, categories by categories, attributes per attributes, and so on. And so you are truly seeing directly from the UI as a supplier that the data you are pushing is compliant, is okay, and is going to go through ultimately. So you are not trying to push it and then receiving an error message. You are succeeding directly because you can't push a product if you aren't compliant. So both way works, but both aren't suitable for all partners, all suppliers, basically. And that's what Sergey explained really well. You have to be able to measure the maturity of your suppliers and be able to position them on how they are going to be able to interact with you. How much can you demand from your suppliers? A lot, nothing, a little bit. and depending on that, the different solutions would apply. Yeah, but those two are still doable.
Yeah, so I would agree here with Tanguy. It quite depends of your business model. If you have kind of generic products and you can easily map them, so maybe you don't need to have an onboarder. But if it is, if you're onboarding some custom suppliers and basically they are the source of products for you, they are providing all product information to your database, like images, maybe some unique descriptions and even product names. So in this case, that's maybe something you would like to collaborate more than just receive the Excel sheet.
Yeah, guys, the time has run up. We do have quite some more questions, but all these questions we're gonna attend to later, and we will get back to all of you who have asked.
Thanks for asking the questions. They were really interesting and straight to the point.
Yeah, thanks for questions.
All right, then, and that is it from us. So thank you so very much for listening. Don't miss the last episode. Thank you, Sergey. Thank you, Tanguy.
And thank you, Tommy.
Thank you all. See you next week.
See you next week.